G'day champions, it's Craig here, and I recently got to spend a few days in Melbourne, and then one of those nights I had pretty free, so I decided to break out the gear and take a few shots of Melbourne CBD, my favourite city in all of Australia. So yeah, this is what I thought I'd do this video about, is I'll just take you through one of the shots that I took, how and why I composed the shot the way I did, and then I'll take you through my editing process and workflow in Lightroom. Now, like I said, Melbourne, I love Melbourne. I've got to go out and take a few shots. The gear that I used throughout the night was the Nikon Z6, and then I alternated between the 24-70 Z mount lens that comes with the Z6, 16-35 Nikon lens, and then also a Tamron, the 35-150mm as well. I started out at Flinders Street Station, and the reason why I started at Flinders Street Station, just always nice to take a few nice semi-long exposure shots of trams as they go through the crossing there, and with the station in the background. That's always fun to do. Then I moved over to South Bank, and this is where I will take you through this image now. So this image here is from Sandridge Bridge. Now, before I take you through why I composed that image, I'll just take you through another shot that I had composed, and you can see this one here now. It's actually not a bad shot. It's got some nice lead lines in the middle there, but I have taken this pretty well exactly the same shot a couple of years ago, so I just want to do something a little bit different. And so this is the reason why I settled on this composure down lower, because it was a little bit different. I wanted to get lower to the ground. You could still see the really nice metal railing on the right-hand side. Get you some really nice lead lines right into the middle of the frame. And what's really great about this bridge is that it looks directly, when you've got the camera there, at the clock tower in the background with the city as well. And all those colors lighting up, it just looks spectacular. So that's the reason why I composed the shot the way I did. And like I mentioned before, I used a Nikon Z6. So that's the reason why I took the shot and how I wanted to compose it, really just because I wanted that really nice lead lines and have that metal railing on the right. It has a really nice crunchy feel about it. So now what I'll do is I'll take you through my Lightroom editing process and workflow, and I'll take you through and the reasons why I edit the way I do. Okay, I'm at my workstation now, and I will take you through the image of Sandridge Bridge that I've chosen. Like I mentioned before, I chose this really because of the nice lead lines. You can see the nice metal railing on the right-hand side leading into the clock tower, as well as the lights on the left-hand side. Clock tower right in the middle of the frame, and then the buildings in the background as well. So my workflow is probably a little bit different than a lot of other people. I don't normally go just through the panels from top to bottom. I do switch around a little bit. I find that that's just better for me from a workflow perspective. So I'll just take you through that right now. So the first thing I really want to do is make sure everything's lined up, the horizon straight and the buildings are straight, which they're not. So looks like I didn't quite line that up nice and straight. So let's do that now. Okay, make sure the building's a bit straighter. That is done. Actually, probably gone a little bit too far. All right. Okay, and then from there, for me, the first thing that I do is just make sure I get my Adobe profile right. Normally I pick Adobe Landscapes for my landscapes, even if it's a cityscape, and you can see that just gives it a bit more punch and a bit more contrast. So we choose landscape. Sometimes I might do the white balance as well if it's not quite right. I just pick the white balance selector and I get a neutral gray and move that over like that. But it's pretty good already. So let's just keep it at the landscape profile. And really from there, this is where I'd probably change a little bit more than a lot of others. I go straight down into the calibration panel. And this is really where the magic happens to start with, to really make your images unique in your own, I suppose, if you like. And for me, this is what I do a lot, and I start off with the blue primaries down here, and I really try and crush the blues. When I say crush the blues, I really try and reduce the saturation. So I'll take that right down to -100, and you can see there's a lot of blue hue in landscape shots, even at night. There's a lot of potentially blue lights and things like that, and you can see here, when I've reduced those blues, they've really come out, just giving that a nice steely look. And then from there, I will move over my hue to the more teal to about -30, I reckon. And that's sort of the look and the feel that I really like to go for. And the greens as well, let's reduce the saturation on the greens by about 75, or maybe not quite that much. Maybe about 50. Let's go about 50. And then the hue as well, let's move that right over to the other side. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I don't mind that. And then the reds, what I'll do is I might just increase the saturations of the reds a little bit, and really just to focus on this red building in the background. And then the hue as well, I might try and change the hue back down to probably about here, I reckon, as well. So that's really, you can see the real difference that the camera calibration panel can do to your images straight away, and you can really create your own look and feel and a signature look, I suppose. So if we have a look at before and now after, just from using the camera calibration panel, and that's really where a lot of the magic happens to start, which is the reason why I start pretty well. One of the first things I do is use the camera calibration. Okay, from there now let's move back up into the basic panel. So what I'll do is look, the exposure I don't think is too bad. The contrast is okay because of the Adobe landscape profile that I selected. For me, it's really just probably just moving these highlights down a bit. So I might drag that down to about -50, just so we can make sure that you can see all the individual windows in the buildings. And I might just add a little bit of texture and a little bit more punch and clarity. Let's increase the texture by about, just slightly by about 10 as well from there. And look, and really for now, that's all I really need. The shadows aren't too bad. I can see everything that I need to, and the whites and the blacks okay for what the look and feel that I'm really trying to look for. So that's really it for the basic panel for me. I'll move then into the HSL color panel, and like I've missed the tone curve really just because, like I mentioned before, the Adobe landscape profile is quite contrasty anyway, and I want that punch, and I don't really need any more than that, so that's enough for me. Okay, so if we have a look at the color panel, I might start with the oranges here, and let's have a look here. Let's increase the saturation a little bit to get the punch in the buildings in the background. And then let's change the type of hue that this has, probably more to the left, I reckon, to about there. And then what else have we got here? Yellows. Let's move the yellows. I think I might, there's not a lot to do in the yellows, but let's just get rid of the little bits and pieces of yellows there. And then greens, there's probably not a lot. No, there's not. Aqua, not a lot of aqua as well. Blue is, I think, where it's going to be. So what I might do here is, let's take a little bit more blues out, I think. Well, there's not a lot left, but there's a little bit. So that's about -25. And then increase my luminance, I think, and really brighten up some of those areas as well now. About +40 I'll do there. And then I think that should be enough. Look, and the reason why I did the yellows here is because it made the ground a little bit more neutral in the foreground, and more natural for that walkway. So that'll be it for the colors. I don't think there's probably a lot of purples around. And a little bit, I'll take a little bit, just get rid of the purple, little bits of purple. Yeah, and just reduce that a little bit. And that's everything for the color panel. And then from a grading perspective, I do like a sort of an aqua-y, if that's a word, teal type of a look and feel. So in my midtones here, I'm just going to drag it over, just slightly over to the sort of a teal look and feel, just to ever so slightly change the look and feel again of that image to give it that sort of look and feel that I'm going for. Makes it a bit more icy cold and, you know, just a bit more of a steely type of a cityscape image. Down to the detail for sharpening, I'll sharpen up to about 100, but I will mask till around about 40. Let's have a look here. Yeah, and what I'm doing here is I'm just holding down my Alt key, and I'm masking. The areas in white are the areas that are going to get sharpened. Anything in black doesn't get sharpened. So I don't want to sharpen the sky, and I don't want to sharpen things that would like to be nice and smooth. So let's just increase the masking to about 50, and I'll drop down my detail and the radius of the sharpening a little bit as well to make sure it's not too harsh and creates too much noise. Just a fraction of luminance to about 7, between 7 and 10 really, just to get some smoothness, potentially really in the sky, and get rid of the noise a little bit there. And that's everything I'll do in the detail panel. And look, really that's probably about it from a basics, you know, like the canvas of just making a broad brush adjustments to the whole image. Next, and then I'll do a few bespoke changes to really make some areas stand out a bit more. So I'll take you through what that is. So firstly, what I want to do is create a bit of a vignette, but I don't want to do a standard vignette around the whole image. I just want to do a vignette and reduce the exposure in the bottom half. So what I'll do here is I'll create a graduated filter for exposure and reduce it by about 1 stop, which is -1, -1, and let's drag that up. And then that way, the subject really becomes this building in the middle here. And I'll just graduate that, so that's done. And then from there, I'll do a few radial filters next. So I'll do a radial filter in the middle here and with a little bit more exposure. Maybe about, let's see, what do I want to do here? Maybe about a stop to start with and see what that looks like. So let's put an extra stop of light in the building to really draw the eyes into the center. And you can see here though, I might want to try and drop the highlights again so it looks too bright. So let's drop the highlights a bit. And I might add a bit of extra texture to the buildings as well. So I've dropped the highlights to about -50, -60, and then the texture is up at about +33. And that will add a bit more crunch in the middle. I actually might do a bit of clarity as well, just to make sure the buildings really pop. So that's one radial filter there. Click on done. And then the next, I might do another radial filter, just actually on the ground here, just a radial filter with exposure and increase it by a stop. And the reason I'm going to do this, I'll show you, is you can see if I do that now, we've got lights above here going down onto the walkway, but the walkway doesn't look like it's got lights shining on it. So we can introduce that artificially. And so that's what I'll do here is I'll create a bit of artificial light here. So it looks like the lights are shining on the pathway and creating a bit of extra light here. So let's do that, which I've done. That's about extra 1 stop of light. That should be enough. What I might do next is, I don't know if you can see too well, but there's up here, if I zoom in, there's some clouds, but you can't really see them too much. I want to create some more whiteness in the clouds and a bit more brightness. So I'm going to create another radial filter for whites, increase the whites to 100, and I might actually increase half a stop on the exposure as well. Let's do that. And now we can see the clouds in the sky a bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Just do a little bit more exposure, hey? Here we go. Now we can really see the clouds in the sky, even though it's night, and this gives us a little bit more contrast in the night sky rather than just having it black or really sort of a darker blue. So that's that radial filter done. And then probably the last thing I want to do is I really like the lead lines and the fact that the railing is metal. And I think that's really worthwhile highlighting a little bit in the image as well. So let me just do another exposure radial filter about to stop. Increase the exposure in over here as well. And I might increase the texture and clarity by about 60 or 70 each and really give it that metal, that really crunchy look. There, like that. And then I might do it again up underneath the rail, like that. So the viewer can see the railing there. Okay, let's go done. Now what I did notice here is you can see a nice piece of bird guano right in the corner there. I don't want that in the frame, so let's just use the spot removal tool. And let's just click and drag down here, and that should replace it pretty nicely. Done. And that is about it. So if we have a look at before, and that's the straight out of the camera, and then after the way it looks. And then if I look at the left and right, just for your images, and you can see on the left-hand side the before and how we've edited it afterwards. So that's basically my workflow as well. I hope you enjoyed that, and you can sort of give it a bit of an insight of how I enjoy my sort of pared back style of photography and editing. Not overly saturated, but still pretty intense, even though the colors are fairly muted. Hope you get a bit of an insight and enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd really enjoy it and appreciate it if you did. The goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll talk to you all again soon. See you later, guys.